Paul?
3,
Go on, I'm sorry.
4, 5.
We've got it now.
1:31. We are 1 minute behind.
Yeah, we're short, aren't we?
No, they just told me we have a quorum.
We do?
Ms. Hamlin just came in.
Do we good?
Oh, yeah, we do. Yep.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We will call the meeting of the Space Coast Transportation Planning Organization meeting to order at 1:32. And please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hoorah!
All right, thank you. Anyone wishing to make a comment on an item or not on an agenda item, please complete a speaker card at the sign-in desk. For items on the agenda, please fill out a speaker card and you'll be called on when your item is discussed. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. We'll start off with reports and we'll go to the executive report. Georgiana?
All right. Well, good to see everyone, members. Thank you for being here. In your agenda package, you will find the public outreach and engagement report for September and October. I did want to mention the Stop on Red pop-up event in Palm Bay was quite a success this year. We were at the intersection of Babcock Street and Port Malabar Road. This location is on our high injury network, and we had the Palm Bay City staff, the Palm Bay Police Department, FHP, as well as the Titusville Police Department that joined us, and it was quite a success. That is a location that there is a lot going on out there. We saw quite a few close calls. I think it was 4 or 5 red light runners at that location, even though we were all holding signs saying stop on red. So it's about educating the public. This was during rush hour around between the 8:30 to 10 o'clock time frame. So it's about just education and bringing awareness about safety. We do have a staff win. The TPO's annual report took home an award of distinction at the Florida Public Relations Association and received the 66th Golden Image Award. Abby Hemingway was the project manager, and our consultant, HDR, helped execute that vision. So we were very proud of that effort. Also on page 10 and 11 of your agenda, you'll find the Ellis Road fact sheet. And we developed this to kind of help educate and advocate for funding for the infrastructure grant. The county submitted the infra grant on August the 18th, submitted it into the grants.gov website. Brevard County is going to be the applicant, and it was quite a heavy lift. These large US DOT grants are really a lot of work. There's a lot of effort put into it. We're asking for $46.9 million. That is our shortfall, and we have matching funds of $34.1, and that is funding from Brevard County, the TPO, the Florida Department of Transportation, the City of West Melbourne, and the City of Melbourne all contributed so that we have that $34.1 million. And so it was a tremendous amount of partnership. The Melbourne-Orlando International Airport was a tremendous partner, and even though they cannot contribute funds due to FAA rules, they have been a partner allowing us to have meetings at their location and just helping to advocate for the project. So I know Director Donovan is here, and Cliff Graham, who's our TAC chair with the airport, has just been such a tremendous amount of help. So we have received letters of support from a lot of folks, including Congressman Posey. We were very appreciative of that. The county's lobbyist is also working with Senator Scott's office and Senator Rubio's office to obtain those letters of support as well. And both of those offices have reached out to me. So those are 2 letters of support that we really do need to get in our back pocket, because I think that's very important. We may not find out if this award is going to be received until next year. It might be March or April of next year before the grant award is noticed. So at this point, it's about advocating for the project, and that is very important. Finally, the DOT's work program development is underway. They will be receiving their new allocations by the end of this month. And our list of project priorities that we turn over to the DOT in July of each year, that is what they go through during the work program development cycle and see what they can fund off that list with available state and federal funding. We've been having one-on-one conversations with them about our priorities. We met with Secretary Tyler in June to go through our priority list and talk about those priorities. And he's very aware of what those priorities are. We have Ellis is definitely number one on our SIS list, but we have a lot of priorities that are very important to us, and he's very aware. And so we're hopeful that we will receive some new funding this year. We are hearing that cost increases continue to be a problem, and that it's really eating into the new funding potentially that may be received. So stay tuned, because the DOT will be presenting the work program in December of this year. Also in your package, you have our fiscal year 23 operating budget, which is our third quarterly report. And Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. And we'll move on to the TAC and CAC report.
Okay, the TAC-CAC met on Monday, and outside the door there is a summary of actions. The TAC-CAC approved all of the action items that are before you today, and you also have their attendance record in the agenda package if you would like to take a look at that. So that is my report.
All right, thank you. The Bicycle Pedestrian and Trails Advisory Committee, that is Sarah.
Good afternoon, Sarah Crom, Senior Transportation Planner. Regretfully, due to some quorum issues, as well as also to be respectful of the hurricane recently, we did have to cancel our last BPAC meeting. In order to keep items on schedule for coming to this board in October, we have rescheduled a special meeting for next Monday, September 18th. So I have no more other report because we didn't meet. So, thank you.
It was fast. Thank you, Sarah. The Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board, Terry.
Good afternoon, everyone. Terry Jordan, Space Coast Area Transit. Reporting on the Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board meeting, which was held on August 14th. Meeting highlights were, as noted in your packet, the approval of our rate calculation model. This is a model that we submit to the Commission for Transportation Disadvantage each year, which covers the cost that we can be reimbursed for the transportation of those that utilize the service. This year's rates were $2.61 per mile for ambulatory passengers. This is 76 cents more than the previous year's calculations and approved rate. And for our wheelchair transportation of passengers, went up $1.30 to a cost of $4.47 per mile. And this, once again, was in coordination with the CTD and approved by the LCB board at this meeting. Other items, action items included the transfer of passengers from our TD services or our demand response services to our fixed route because of the reducing the cost for transportation. Staff requested that we would table this item so we can do additional research to determine what would be the best percentage rate, because if you figure a person is on our service for disadvantaged services, it's likely that they're not getting better. It's likely that they will need to continue to utilize the service. So although this is a mandate, we want to make sure we're going to be cognizant of the concerns that we would raise by having someone move to the fixed route service, which then requires them to walk to a bus stop, walk to their destination, versus the current service being utilized and afforded to them of the door-to-door transportation. So that item is being tabled. We're looking into that more, and we'll come back to the LCB at our next upcoming meeting. Additional items of focus were that we had 3 positions that termed out on the board. The selection committee met this Monday and selected the new members of the primary and alternates for these roles. And this group will be presented to the governing board at your next meeting. So you'll see the opportunity to discuss and then approve of those members that were selected for the LCB roles that were on tap. We did our typical membership reports from our customer service, myself, and our volunteers in motion, and that was our meeting. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer at this time.
Any questions on, all right, thank you very
Thank you.
much, Terry. All right, and our next report is from the Florida Department of Transportation report. John Scarf.
Good afternoon, John Scarf. I am the District 5 MPO Liaison Supervisor. I'll be providing your FDOT report this afternoon. There are a couple items I'd like to bring up, first being the introduction of Chuck Coppernell. Chuck, will you please stand? He's been assigned as your future liaison. So he's in training right now, but you'll be seeing him at future meetings. So I wanted to make sure that you see his face, get to know him, push his buttons, put him to work. All right, next on page 28 of your agenda packages, you will find your FDOT construction report. I just wanted to bring a couple items to your attention, and those are ongoing closures for various lanes. First one being the ramp and mast arm improvement project located at intersection of Wickham Road and I-95. So that'll experience nightly closures through September 22nd. And those will be taking place from 8 p.m. to 7 a.m., and that's due to paving operations. The second closure is the corridor improvements along State Route 5 US 1 from Indian River County line to north of Goat Creek. That will have daily single-lane closures along US 1 between Indian River County line and just north of Goat Creek. And that is due to ongoing construction in the area, set to be complete in late of 23, or as you were. Completion late 23. So from the previous board, there were a couple of items I want to address that your previous liaison brought to my attention. This being first, the intersection of US 192 and US 1. There's concerns of signage and turn lanes at that intersection, and I believe this has been brought up multiple times. I want to inform you that this is being addressed by the signage is being addressed by a district-wide push-button project. It's a design push-button project, the contract project that will extend the right turn lane and address the situation. I spoke with the project manager recently and was informed that he expects to release the plans to the contractor by the end of September. And that contractor will likely start work on acquiring the needed drainage structures and traffic signage and equipment needed to complete that project. So there was more to it than just signage. The second item I'd like to address is I-95 Malabar Road interchange. There were safety concerns, and we are addressing these through a PD&E study that will be fully funded in FY25. And this is to further address concerns at that interchange and improve the strategic I-95 plan in general. And that concludes my comments at this time. Pending comments, that's all I have this afternoon.
Thank you. Any questions?
Well, thank you, Major. I really appreciate your report. Wanted to talk a little bit through the interchange on I-95 and Malabar Road. As you know, we sent out a letter from the city of Palm Bay in regards to the loss of life on 95. It's encouraging that we do have an opportunity for that PD&E study. However, that letter should be responded to with detailed information on FDOT's response, and I'm hoping I could get that type of support from you, Major, as a liaison.
Understood, Mayor. We'll take it back to the department and see what we can generate. I can't promise anything, but we'll look into it and see what we can respond with.
Well, I appreciate that, sir. And to add to that, I'd like not only that to be the message, but also how serious, since we did lose a life, and I did have a discussion with Stephen from FDOT, he also witnessed how 95 gets backed up as you exit. And that is the cause of the backup. So I want it on record that we are requesting for that to be expedited because we don't need another loss of life to occur on I-95 because of that deficiency on that interchange. So if we could do something temporary, whether it's 2 lanes as you exit off of 95 or just a dedicated line for And I'm not a traffic engineer, but I'm just thinking outside the box, Major, of anything we can do to prevent the safety risk.
Comments received, Mayor.
Aye, aye, sir. Thank you, Major.
Are there any other, yes, Ms. Minus?
I was just reading, I believe October 3rd, I believe it is, FDOT will have a public meeting at Front Street referencing, it says safety issues. It's gonna be from Main Street to, University or Miles. And I think the issue was, my understanding is that FDOT says there's a safety issue. And so I don't know if you know anything about it, but I'm concerned about what safety issues are there. I think the bottom line is that on US 1, the plan is to prevent left-hand turns coming from the west streets onto US 1. And there is a lot of, I won't say uproar, but there's a lot of chatter about that. For the last 1,100 years, there have not been any issues that I'm aware of. And I can confirm that, with the police reports. But there is a community meeting with FDOT and the city that's coming up. I think that date is October 3rd. I would have to confirm that. But there is a lot of community concerns about putting a median so to prevent the left-hand turns from the west onto US 1. So just want to bring that to you.
Madam Chair, if I might,
Yes.
may Councilmember Minus, TPO staff will be attending that public meeting as well. I will let you know that your city staff, it's an access management project specifically that they turned the project, they consider that a safety project, over to the TPO to ask for funding for improvements to put in some medians and improve safety for pedestrians. And then the DOT had a full resurfacing through the corridor, and so the two projects were combined. And so I think it'll be really good for us to see the presentation. I know the public will be there. I think once we see it all, see the boards, I think they may be able to answer some questions, and it may give the public a little bit an easier time of understanding what the project is. But I know Tammy Gillen has been working with the DOT project manager on that, and that project was submitted to the TPO for funding, and we did fund it with our federal funding. So we will be there, and I think that the DOT can kind of help explain that project a little more. But,
Okay. All right. I can assure you that there is a vast amount of resistance
Okay.
to that. I get with Ms. Tammy for further discussions, so I wasn't aware that the city had, that input into it.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
I
With access
definitely-
management, yes,
Okay.
sorry, with access management projects, there tends to be resistance, and I totally understand that. So it may not be acceptable, so we'll see. But yes, speak with Tammy, and she may be able to shed some light on that as well.
Okay, all right. Well, I do know that from Powell to University, the lanes, you can't see the striping on the lanes at all. I live on the south end, and I've almost been broadsided several times coming from the west onto US 1, and you cannot see the lanes.
Okay.
So if there is anything to be considered, first would be the striping on those lanes.
Gotcha.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Ms. Minus. Any other comments for Mr. Scarf? All right, and I would like to personally...
Madam Chair?
Yes?
I don't want to be, I walked in, I apologize for being late. won't be too redundant, but I'm pretty sure Mayor Medina shared with you guys how important the exit, 95 exit 173 into Malabar Road, how obviously it's been recorded, the accidents in recent years. And I can tell you, I haven't traveled 95 in a while onto that exit, but it is getting worse and worse. Our population is currently, the most recent, about 135,000 people. So this exit is probably one of the most used exit into Palm Bay. I advise my family to avoid that exit at all costs. 176 or 166, for my family, my close loved ones, I mean, it is, you all should experience that or drive by, you know, at the peak hours, like 5 o'clock, the 4 to 6 o'clock time frame. It is horrible. So whatever we can do, it's really, it's a yesterday urgency, not 2025. It's truly whatever we can do, and this is, we're not talking about, you know, it's his lives, people's lives in the line here. So whatever we can do to move this forward, or it's urgent. So just wanted to.
Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Medina.
Madam Chair, I
Mayor
just
Medina.
wanted to clarify a few points. Major Stark, I call him Major Stark because Major Stark honorably served this nation as a United States Marine, and as the former Commandant General Amos once said, once a Marine, always a Marine. So I'll always address him as Major Stark. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor Medina. Any other comments? I just would like to personally thank you that there is no resistance to the improvement you're doing at State Road 500 and Hollywood Boulevard, so 192 and Hollywood Boulevard. I know that that's starting this month, and I drive through there pretty much daily, and I'm always looking. I've been promising, I've been posting about this for years, coming up about the whole new, with Hollywood to Evans and then 192. So thank you very, very much for starting on that very, very soon. Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, next item, consent agenda. Georgiana, would you please read the consent agenda aloud for the record?
Certainly. The consent agenda, the first item is the TPO Governing Board minutes of July 13th, approval of committee appointments. We do have 2 appointments in the package. Adoption of Resolution 24-04 fiscal year 24 operating budget. There have been no changes since the draft was presented in July. Also approval of our functional classification updates, which is really a roadway classification. And then the last item is our compensation and pay plan structure, and that is the consent agenda.
All right, thank you. May we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second, first,
Motion. Motion minus? Second. Second, Allender. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. All right, next item. Oh, that was fun. Committee appointments. I'm sorry, the governing board meeting minutes. Yes.
Okay, action items 5A, okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, you threw me there for a second. No, I've got it. Fiscal year 2024 Central Florida MPO Alliance list of priority projects. This is really a housekeeping item, but we do want to add a new project to this list. Each year, the Central Florida MPO Alliance develops and approves a regional list of priority projects. And of course, the Alliance is 6 MPOs, Lake Sumter, Metro Plan Orlando, Ocala Marion, River to Sea, the Space Coast TPO, and the Polk TPO. And these priorities are separated into categories based on the types of projects or funding type that supports the priorities. So we have our strategic intermodal system list, which, by the way, Ellis Road widening is the #1 priority on that SIS list, and that remains the same today. We have a group of regional trails, and we also have a trip list, We call it a trip list, but it's the Transportation Regional Incentive Program, which was created to improve regionally significant facilities. It's funding state funds that are available at 50% to provide incentives for local governments and the private sector to help pay for projects that support regional travel and commerce. And so we're proposing to add one project to the trip list, and that is the St. John's Heritage Parkway from Malabar Road to the northern city limits. It's 0.73 miles north of Emerson Drive. It's approximately 3 miles. The City of Palm Bay was very proactive and received a $1.5 million state appropriation to complete the design of that project to widen it for 4 lanes. And this is a way of making sure that as we move forward with construction, that we could potentially go after some trip funding, either with to match it with city or TPO funding. And so we want to keep all options on the table for our priorities. And being able to go after different flavors of money is extremely important as we move through this process. So we're just updating cost estimates on all of the projects that we will be taking to the Alliance in October, but on the trip list, we do want to add this new project and take it to the Alliance in October for approval, and then after it gets approved, we turn that list over to the DOT, and then they fund projects as funding becomes available.
So do you need that in the form of a motion regarding
sir.
the city
Need a
of Palm
motion
Bay?
and a second, yes.
So I so move that.
Thank you, Mayor Medina. Motion Medina, second.
Second.
Second, Willis. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. The next action item will be a roll call vote, and that is the Transportation Improvement Program.
All right, so this is definitely a housekeeping item. This is our annual roll forward TIP amendment for fiscal year 24 through 28. And, there are the roll forward report are a very large list of projects that was not authorized and encumbered before June 30th of this year. And so they automatically roll forward in the DOT work program, but they do not automatically roll forward in our transportation improvement program because that's a TPO document. And so this action will be to amend this list of projects into our transportation improvement program. So that is the roll forward TIP amendment. And we do need approval via roll call vote.
All right, so we had a motion and a second, please, for approval. Motion Allender, second Minus, and this is a roll call vote.
Sorry, give me 1 second.
Get on the quick.
Okay. Okay. Allender?
Yes.
Barton? Yes. Felix?
Yes.
Feltner?
Yes.
Forrester?
Yes.
Hanley?
Yes.
Medina?
Aye.
Minus?
Aye.
Robinson?
Yes.
Willis? Yes. And Young?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Motion carries. All right, we'll move on to our last action item, and that is approval of the Executive Director's Annual Performance Evaluation. Mr. Gogelman.
Yes, the Executive Committee met this morning and did look at this issue. And so I will summarize not only their action, but I will summarize as well what's in your agenda package. As indicated in the agenda package, you have a summary memo which shows the rating of each individual member of the Executive Committee with regard to Ms. Gillette's evaluation. And each member was asked to individually and privately rate Ms. Gillette. All of the ratings were then combined and presented for a public hearing this morning before the Executive Committee to get their approval. The Executive Committee did meet and discuss this at some length and voted to go ahead and approve the evaluation. The upshot of this is that on a 5.0 scale, Ms. Gillette received a score of 4.90588, which is just amazingly a little shy of 5.0, and as we've discussed many times in the past, getting a 5.0 rating is, while is mathematically possible, is realistically virtually impossible, because it would require every evaluator on every evaluating criterion to rate Ms. Gillette as a 5. And in reality, that you could put Abe Lincoln up there and it probably wouldn't happen. In any event, her ratings are extremely high, and as pointed out in the memo, the ratings came in at a slightly higher rating than last year. Last year, she got a 4.8235. This year, she gets a 4.90588. There were no public comments that were made. The committee was quite supportive, I think, of the work that Ms. Gillette has done. The next issue that the committee took up was the recommendation for a salary increase. And after some lengthy discussion on this, the committee did agree to a 5% merit increase to be granted for this next year. Therefore, what you are being asked to do this afternoon is first is to approve the evaluation, consider that, take any public comments and approve the evaluation. Then the second thing that you're asked to do would be to confirm the 5% merit increase.
I move the evaluation. Now, I just wanted to say, we, as a community, we're truly blessed by your leadership, ma'am. And I'm honored to know you. I'm honored to work alongside of you for the best interests of our community as we continue to enhance the quality of life in our community. So thank you very much, ma'am.
All right, so we have a motion to accept the evaluation by Mayor Medina and a second by Mimi Hanley, sorry. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Thank you, motion carries.
Madam
Next.
Chair,
Yes, Mr.
I
Forrester.
have a question. What kind of raises are we looking at for the rest of the staff for this year?
So we are, staff will be receiving a 5% cost of living increase. But first, prior to that, you approved our pay and compensation plan structure. And so now we have went through that and went through everyone's new pay structure and looked at their tenure as well. And we do have the funding with approval of that pay and plan structure. We do have the funding to approve upgrades or salary increases for staff as needed throughout to bring everyone up to where they need to be. And so that will be about with benefits, about $100,000 for the TPO to be able to bring staff to where they need to be under this pay and plan structure. So staff will be taken care of, and then after that will be the 5% cost of living increase on top of that.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. So now we are going to talk about the pay increase, which is a separate motion altogether.
Madam Chair?
Motion to approve a 5% salary increase.
Second.
Motion and second, but I know we have a question as well. So motion, Allender, second, Medina, and yes, your question, Ms.
No, I
Minor.
was trying to get the recognition to make the motion.
Oh, I'm very sorry. All right, so
It's all right.
we'll just have a free-for-all. Mr. Forrester, what would you like to say?
I'm back at it again. It seems that with the adjustments we're making on everyone else's salaries, almost everybody in there, especially those that have been here for a year or two, are going to get a nice raise and then 5% on top of that. And the 5% is what we're talking about giving Georgiana. I'd like to up that to 7% to kind of keep her in line with what the other people with the same kind of percentage increase that the rest of the staff is going to be getting.
So she will receive the same 5% COLA, and we're talking about another 5% merit raise on top of that.
Yes.
Is that what we're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
I thought we were just talking about the COLA.
Per my, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Per my contract, if staff receives a cost of living increase, then I receive a cost of living increase.
Right.
So that's per the contract. So, so now we're talking about really 10%.
5% is over that. Okay.
Correct, correct.
I'm good.
All right, so we have, I'm sorry I have to back this up, Mr. Ollender, but
No,
Ms. Minus
it's
was
okay.
there first.
Go ahead, you've acknowledged them, so.
All right, thank you very, very much. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, thank you, motion carries. Congratulations.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you. All right, now we move to presentations, and we are very honored here today to have the Executive Director, Greg Donovan, from our Melbourne Orlando International Airport. Thank you, Mr. Donovan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me here. Warm welcomes and hello from the airport. I know that we've worked really hard and well together. Oh, perfect. Thank you. On most importantly, and probably one of the bigger issues facing our community has been the Ellis Road process. And I want to take the time just to start off with congratulating TPO staff, Georgiana, how well we work together and how well we are represented. Certainly affirm all the good decisions that were made on your performance evaluation. She works extremely well with the airport. So very happy to have the opportunity to say hello to you. Many of you know firsthand some of the work that's being done at the airport, but the invitation was to come and brief the board and the TPO about the accomplishments in the direction of the airport and how we can work together on that. I'd like to recognize, obviously, Yvonne and Mimi, who are both on City Council. We work very close with City of Melbourne. As a special district, we go through a process of approvals with our budget and so forth, so I want to thank both of them for their service on City Council. But your airport is not just a city resource, it's a regional resource. And we've done some pretty amazing things over the years that I'd like to really focus on to make sure you understand what our needs are going forward. Right now, on any given workday, we've got about 20,000 people working on campus. And that number continues to grow. If you drive along Apollo, you can see some of the work being done, clearing an area where we have Dassault Falcon that's coming in. They're putting about $140 million of their money into capital improvements on site. And at the end of the day, they're going to employ somewhere between 500 and 600 people. And that's one of the latest that's been added to this. Everybody in the room understands the importance of good jobs, the aerospace industry, the resiliency of the type of work that's being performed in our community. But you can't do it without the right infrastructure. And having an airport has everything to do with it. Green fields work great when there's special engineering needs and you can work in an office building. But the type of work that we do in the aerospace industry requires runways, taxiways, control towers, and things like that. And for that reason, we've put over $200 million into infrastructure into the airport. Now, when I say $200 million, especially to a group such as this that has to work so hard for every dime that we get for our roads, our bridges, all of our infrastructure, you can't say, well, where's that money coming from? Good news is it's coming from aviation-specific funding. So it's coming from the FAA. We're competing with other airports. We're not competing with road entities. With FDOT, there's an aviation work program that's specifically carved out that does not compete with roads or ports or bridges or highways. So really the money is well invested not only in our facility but also in the community directly through a process of aviation specific related things. So we have about 20,000 people that work on our campus. We're going to see that go up. And roads like Ellis and arteries coming into the airport are absolutely critical. And so the responsibility that you all have as board members and as an organization are critical to the success of this economic engine. So if you sort it out on any given day, it ranks about the port, NASA, and us in terms of economic engines in our community. And I'm not going to, draw lines on maps to say, well, this is Brevard County versus, because we overlap to a lot of other counties too. But at the end of the day, that says 2.8, the state just came out just a few weeks ago, in fact, with a $3.2 billion economic impact from the airport. And this is accomplished without being on ad valorem taxes, without collecting sales taxes, without having those mechanisms that we compete for our schools and other programs within our community. So it really is an excellent resource for our community to have an airport of its own. I want to talk a little bit about passenger activity because it directly correlates. We'll talk about aerospace activity when it comes around to employment, and then we'll also talk about passenger activity as well. So everybody knows the COVID situation really hurt travel for a period of time. You can see that dip. But before that, we were averaging about 500,000 passengers a year. And if you go back historically, that's been about the case, except for back in the early 80s or mid 80s, we had our highest year. Well, last year, in our 95-year history, we came in second, and that's at 701,000. Our target this year is 850,000 passengers. So you can see we're breaking historic records. We'll break our 95-year history of the airport if things go well for the remainder of the year. A hurricane, a storm, something outside our purview can certainly affect that. But at the end of the day, that's a really strong number, and we're continuing to build on that. Of that 850, our target is roughly 400,000 international passengers. And that's a whole new dynamic that our community really hasn't seen up until the last 2 years. And I'll go into that a little bit as well, but everybody's seeing a piece of that. So let's talk about our domestic carriers real quick. Our primary carrier is Delta through Atlanta, one-stop shopping, go anywhere in the world through Atlanta. American is our second largest domestic carrier, but we've started moving towards some of these other carriers that are very niche markets, and they're driven mostly on tourism coming here. So Allegiant flying to Pittsburgh, Nashville, and starting in November, Allentown, Pennsylvania. These are really driving people into our community, but at the same time, if you have people from our community that have family, friends, relatives, it's a good way to connect, and some of the fares are really amazing. Another airline that we added this year was Sun Country with nonstop service to Minneapolis-St. Paul. And Minneapolis-St. Paul is a real critical area for a number of people that move here, connecting their families, and it's very popular during the winter. So it is seasonal right now. We hope to expand it to year-round. And then most recently, we've added Avelo, and Avelo flies New Haven, Connecticut. Their model is to go to outlying airports instead of flying into JFK or Newark. They're going to go to some of these outlying areas. Now, an interesting story about Avelo, and it shows you how incredibly difficult the industry is about air service. We are so close to some major airports that have daily, almost hourly service to some of these markets. They are, in some cases, 56, 58 times bigger than we are, and they draw from our market. Avelo announced nonstop service to Raleigh-Durham and gave us 3 weeks for it to perform. Now, I can tell you behind the scenes, we don't like those kinds of pressures, but given the circumstances, we're never going to say no. We're going to try. In this case, we had 3 weeks to break the habit of people that are traveling from our area on daily flights out of MCO to taking this flight out of our airport. Has nothing to do with cost. We are the second lowest cost of any airport for an airline in the entire state historically, and has nothing to do with our abilities. Has everything to do with changing passenger choices and behavior. And you have to market that. And in this case, we didn't market it fast enough. 3 weeks was not enough. And Raleigh now is not operating. And it shows you how we depend upon the community to actually purchase tickets. The airport gets it all the way to the finish line of bringing an airline here, but people have to buy tickets for it to work. Now, conversely to that are people that want to come to our area, to our region. And many of you have heard about TUI. I think there's a lot of things that are kind of still misunderstood, even though they're in their second year. They fly to 8 different cities. They fly transatlantic, 787 wide-body aircraft. Daily, we see on average 2-3 flights a day. There are sometimes we have 5 flights a day. Last year, we had 240,000 passengers that came into our community. 62% of them are renting cars, or they call it car hire, and they will drive to different locations and explore Central Florida. They're not all jumping on a bus and going over to Disney. I think a lot of people had fear that that's what was going to take place. We're just going to see the plane land and off they go. No, the majority of them, 62%, are in our community exploring. And you may see some at a restaurant, you may see some at the beach, certainly at some of our retail. And that all has a real positive economic impact for our community. The average stay is 9 nights, and the average spend per person is $3,241. So they're spending good money. The average age is 44.8 years, and the average income is about $102,000. So really, some really great visitors to our community that see that there's a lot more to Central Florida than just the parks over in Orlando. And I think you'll see that continue to grow. So our facilities, if you haven't been out to our facilities, we'd love to have you come out. We've spent quite a bit of money on updating the terminal. We're continuing to work on that. We're going to see some work over the winter here and in the next year, making some of the older portions of the terminal match the newer. But the facilities really are top notch. And whether it's concessions, whether it's the processing through the TSA, we have 5 lanes there now, whether it's international arrivals coming in, we have a distinct advantage of not waiting in line. If you're coming over here to go to the resorts with your kids, you're going to be standing in line a lot. You don't want to start off with standing in line at an airport. And we're working really hard to make sure that we distinguish ourselves from a customer service standpoint. Hotel-wise, we opened up the Hyatt on airport property earlier this year. We're going to be taking down some hangars, and it will be open to business jet aircraft that will be able to taxi into the back area, as you can see depicted over on the right-hand side, lower right-hand side. It has a rooftop bar and restaurant that the operator is still, the owner is still working with the potential operator, and we'll see that get started this year. And really where this all hinges is on the quick accessibility to I-95. And we're so grateful for all the work that everybody in this room put towards the interchange and the extremely complicated process of making sure that we have the right facility and road connecting the airport to I-95. Not just from a first impression for an international passenger, but for the many people that work on campus and the many more people that are going to be working on campus. I can tell you we're on the edge right now of at least 3 major programs, aerospace programs, that will add significant numbers to the people that work on our campus. And the preferred route is Ellis Road. I'm going to skip this, but from an intermodal standpoint, you realize all the benefits that we have of being close now to Port Canaveral, which is the largest port by passenger volume in the world. That really is amazing when you think about how close we are to that, how close we are to all the amenities in Central Florida. And then I want to talk real quick about the aerospace activity. Just yesterday, I got some pictures, and it went public, of the B-21. The B-21 is the newest stealth bomber that's being designed at Northrop Grumman. Northrop Grumman's got about 5,000 employees that work there on a daily basis. What an incredible program to host at our airport. I think you'll see many other projects related to defense from Northrop Grumman in the future. Embraer has gone from having partial manufacturing of business jets in our location in the 9 years I've been here, to moving their entire Phenom program out of Brazil and production 100% made here. So we manufacture 6 different business jets, final assembly, paint, interior, delivery of 6 different types of business jets here in Melbourne. And this is something most people don't know. If you question somebody about this, they wouldn't even guess. that the most popular business jet in the world in terms of sales now for the last 7 years is the Phenom 300. It's made exclusively here. So we're manufacturing the most popular business jet in the world in terms of sales. Really is a big feather on the type of production that's taking place. L3 Harris, many of you know much more and have deeper relationships with L3 Harris than I do, having only been here the years that I have. But I can tell you one of the important elements to them of having their headquarters here is having the right infrastructure. Being able to get around our community and their employees being able to get around our community is really important. You mentioned Dassault Falcon, whether it's Collins, Thales, STS, GE, SATCOM, or Southeast Aerospace, they're all doing extremely well. What are we doing to further enhance the opportunities for people that work in the engineering fields? Well, some of them is about recreational, and these are things we don't have a direct hand on. Margaritaville, the city's done a really good job of keeping that project going. But Laguna Beach is something I want to talk about real quick. I guess we just have one picture here. It's right across the street from Northrop Grumman, right across from NASA, is a parcel that has been part of the airport since it was a naval air station, but never utilized for something. We have before the FAA for final approval to allow a bay, you can see the rendering that's in there, surrounded by retail, restaurants, and corporate housing, right across the street from Northrop Grumman, right across the street from L3 Harris. It's very much a lifestyle type of a thing for younger engineers to have a place to socialize and be able to have some fun. The water amenity is completely man-made, and it really is an interesting use of the property. Lastly, I want to talk about our catchment area and where people are coming from. Almost a third of our traffic is actually coming from Indian River County as it stands right now. So if you look at how many people a day should be using our airport, it's about 2.2 million. But we're losing a good portion of that to people that are driving further than they have to. And as was discussed earlier, that we're continuing to see growth. You see the growth of being ranked number 7. And these, whether it's U-Haul study or a mover study worldwide, we're always ranking in the top 5. So our goal is try to capture or recapture some of the 73% of what we're losing to competitor airports. And again, it's an uphill climb. Frequency, certainly it comes up as fare. The fares that what we charge the airlines is actually less than what MCO charges the airlines. But the airlines know if you want to pay for convenience, you're going to pay a little higher. And they set the fares. We are constantly working on that. This is a list of the top 25 cities by PDEW is per day each way from our catchment area. So this is fact, this is data. And you can see number 1 is New York City, that we have about 261 people a day going from our area up to New York City. Unfortunately, we're only capturing 10% of it at our airport. DC, Atlanta, Chicago, Los Angeles, and the list goes on. You're going to see renewed efforts by me and my staff of trying to get those direct routes. I can tell you we meet with domestic carriers. Every single domestic carrier except for Alaska and Hawaiian, we have met face-to-face with this year, and we have done it every year that I've been here. And we're continuing to pitch some of the value that we have. Value goes back to decisions about accessibility. So at the end of the day, we want to recapture some of that activity, which is going to put a lot more capacity into our airport, but I don't think it's going to do anything but help the overall circulation on the roadways because there's less driving that's involved. And I wanted to finish with, from our chairman, Bill Potter and the Airport Authority. I want to thank you for all the support you've done. And again, Georgiana and the staff and the chair has always been very supportive of the airport, coming to our meetings and giving feedback. And we really recognize the partnership and value that. So thank you for your time this morning, or this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you.
Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Forrester.
I do. Yes, sir. I fly out of Sanford a lot because
Yes.
they have the cheap nonstops to where I'm going.
Right.
That you guys don't have now with the Regent yet.
Yeah.
And, but I noticed that when TUI left Sanford and came to Melbourne, Sanford's left with a multi-gazillion dollar terminal redesign and rebuild and everything that's now it's just sitting up there. They got the duty-free shops boarded up, and what kind of contingency plans, let's say TUI changed their minds again and decided to fly somewhere else or some other
Right.
comparable situation. How do you deal with a situation like that?
So, you know, it's a very competitive process. Being a governmental entity, you would think that there would be more stability with it, but there's not. I can tell you that there's a lot of competition between all the airports in Central Florida. And Sanford's got amenities and benefits, and so do we. And at the end of the day, when TUI made the decision to move, was that their needs were not being met at that airport. And a lot of it has to do, too, with proximity to, they have a cruise operation out of Port Canaveral. They own several cruise ships. So being on a coastal location and so forth, with the amenities that they wanted, and a few other things. We signed a 7-year agreement with them, and so we have the stability of agreements. I think our rapport with them is extremely high, and I can never say with any certainty Delta could leave tomorrow. In fact, during the COVID, behind the scenes, there were a lot of things that we had to fight for, and Delta was one of them. Delta saw that they say, hey, we're flying into 2 airports in the same catchment area. Basically, locally, when we say Orlando, people, we're not Orlando. Totally understand that. And the name Orlando is more about recognition from a regional or even international standpoint. But even Delta's standpoint, they see us as one population area. Right. And so when they were thinking about cutting it, we scrambled really hard. So there's no certainty about it at all. I feel for some of the challenges being put on different airports strictly because of the amount of activity going into MCO. And I see our airport and Sanford, for that matter, having some reliever capability, if you will. If it's a disservice to passengers, if the experience is just so long to even get into the building, perhaps there's some things we could do to help out, and the same thing goes with Sanford. So Sanford's got a great facility. I think they're going to do well in the long term. TUI's decision to come to us was one that we're very grateful for, and we're going to do everything we can to retain them.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the smaller airports.
Yeah.
Just to get around, to go through security, to maneuver to the gates. I'm a big fan, so good luck.
Everybody in this room understands regionalism, and Kevin Tebow, who's the director now, who used to be the Secretary of Transportation for FDOT, is the director over at GOA, and I know he fully understands it. So I think there's some opportunity to work together, and that's all the airports. Any other questions?
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Donovan before we? All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great presentation.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, our next presentation will be the Regional Intermodal Connections Committee summary by Laura.
Good afternoon. That was a great presentation. I appreciate that, Mr. Donovan. And now we're going to expand to other modes, all kinds of modes, intermodes. About a year ago, we initiated a work order, and this board approved us to initiate and develop and create a local and regional intermodal connections committee. And this is in relationships to Brightline. We've been watching over the last few years construct and add an additional rail line along our entire county from 528 South to begin service between Miami and Orlando International Airport. Brightline has always been very open in stating that thinking about and discussing a local station in Brevard County that they would stop at would not be a serious conversation until after they got the Orlando to Miami route up and running. So knowing that was getting ready to happen in about a year or so, we thought it was a good time to go ahead and really start that conversation, bring our local leaders together and start talking seriously about what's it going to take to get an intermodal station built here in Brevard County. So the purpose of the committee was really to start that collaborative discussion and discuss modal choices here in Brevard County and what opportunities and challenges we have. And understanding intermodal, the thought was it's really the opportunity at one location to utilize more than one form of mode, in this case specifically rail, and accessing another mode, either vehicles, bicycles, pedestrians, transit, buses, ride shares, et cetera, all having them at the same location. So the committee itself met 5 times beginning in January this past year, and it was comprised of various community leaders. We had representatives from Canal Port Authority, our Chambers of Commerce, Tourism, Space Florida, the Melbourne Orlando International Airport was represented also. And on page 148 of your package is the complete list of members that participated in this committee. So what we did is we really wanted to look at and understand what's going to make a successful intermodal station happen here in Brevard. There are 3 key elements, number 1 being the location, and we have to consider the proximity to the final destinations that people are trying to reach. The access, what modes are they going to be able to access to get to those destinations, and then building up around the station a transit-oriented development type of mixed use, where we can have local citizens provide support to the station, but also allow those that are coming to the community to get access locally and then regionally. With that in mind, one of the first meetings we had with the committee was to talk about, well, what makes Brevard unique? Why would people want to come from the Miami and eventually the Tampa area to Brevard County? We know we have a lot of great resources, specifically our environmental features with the Indian River Lagoon. There's a lot of ecotourism here in Brevard. We have launches to space. No one else here in the region has that. We have the Port Canaveral with the cruise industry. And our high-tech industry, specifically also accessing down in the Melbourne Airport area and with the Space Center. And then obviously our beaches are a destination in themselves. Knowing these best attributes of Brevard, we identified the key destinations, specifically being the port, spaceport, other entities such as Brevard Zoo. We also had a presentation that they talked about the aquarium that is under discussion and future development near the port. With that, what would we want our facilities to represent? What kind of feeling or impression do we want our riders that are coming to Brevard to leave with? We want them to understand the future of Brevard's transportation system is going to be connected, it's going to feel futuristic, and it is going to provide those multimodal choices. So at the end of the day, at the last meeting, it was really, there's opportunities and challenges, both for our local land developers and for our local communities. We need to encourage our developers to think multimodal, think transit-oriented development when they're designing their apartments and housing developments. And then our local governments really need to encourage them and support them by changing the land regulations that drive development and make TOD a reality. Moving next, after the RIC, we're going to be utilizing some of the representatives that are going to be part of our steering committee and stakeholders for our intermodal station feasibility study. We have just started moving into that about almost 10 years ago, so 8 years ago. We did do a station location study. We are focusing in on, as we have mentioned many times in the past, the city of Cocoa, near the 528, 524 US 1 area. If anybody's familiar with the Clear Lake Curve, Clear Lake Road Curve behind Walmart, that's the area that we're specifically talking about. The location is specific to that area because we were really looking back at the time at what's going to bring ridership. We have to remember that Brightline is a private entity. They want to make money, and we want to make sure that we have close proximity as to those final destinations that I referenced prior. Where are people going? How are they going to get there? So the Cocoa area was the #1 location. And as I mentioned earlier, what makes a successful intermodal station? The location was #1. Second is access. We want to identify now with this study, what intermodal connections do we need? What kind of modes do we need to be providing at this station? And does this station eventually at some point through growth become a destination in itself? That is a vision that the city of Cocoa and the community and all of Brevard needs to decide and support if that is the final decision. Throughout the study, we are going to be reaching out to the public. We will have many methods that we do. reach out to them. Majority of it will probably be a lot of information on our website, but there may be pop-up informations at bazaars or craft fairs that we may be visiting to let people know. I've already been receiving some information and emails from citizens about getting a station in Brevard. What impact is that going to have on our local transportation system? As transportation planners and our project priorities this past year in July, we really focused in on this area, and we moved up the Clear Lake Road widening, the 524 widening. We've got 528 widening. That whole area we have in our sights. We have in our vision to widen it, but we need to make sure when the designs and the construction actually take place, the multimodal facilities are included. That includes sidewalks, bike lanes, and you're like, well, why would people necessarily want that at a train station? The train station has to support the locals. How do the locals get there to provide the amenities that people are going to be using? We're not going to have a station with no amenities. I imagine there'll be some kind of ride sharing, rentals, accessing restaurants, what have you. Those people need to get to the station. We can support the community by providing jobs and employment. And those facilities, including, we have to think of the area, East Central Florida, the Florida State College there, a lot of college students. There might be commuters now coming from Orlando to Cocoa to access University of Central Florida, their classes and their facilities that they have located literally across the street. The whole plan for the feasibility study should take about a year, year and a half. We intend on completing it around the spring of 2025. From there, we hope we are set up to really move into potentially design. We do have some money set aside in 27 and 28, to really kind of show our commitment to looking for an intermodal station and getting that built here in Brevard. So really, what is your role with our long-range transportation plan and the pop-ups and some meetings that we'll be having related to the feasibility study? We would like your support, your attendance at those meetings, and your input, and thinking about what can your community help provide. When people come from out of the region to this area, how can you tap into that, and what modes would you support to get people to your particular area? So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Regarding the, yes, Mr. Feltner.
So how much money do we have to come up with?
For construction of a station?
Yes.
It depends on the station. And I will tell you that when I started looking into this about a year ago, we were originally told similar stations down south were at 50 million at the time. It has almost doubled for basically a platform. So it's very expensive. I would hope that construction and material costs will come down over time. But the vision you have to think about is, you know, what does that station really look like? What access is it going to provide? How big does it need to be? I don't look at this as it's not a commuter rail. That's something we have to remember. This is not for our locals to take a train from Cocoa down to Melbourne. That's not what's going to happen right away. This is regional. I look at it as more as people coming here, and they're going to be using a train. So when you're looking at facilities for, you know, garages to house vehicles, I don't think that's going to be significant. But what kind of transit system do we have? What kind of ride share programs do we have? How do people get from that station to the airport, to the port, to the other destinations that they're wanting to visit here? So I don't know exactly what the cost is going to be, but having partnerships will be critical. I know that Brightline has looked into partnerships down south. There's an Aventura station that's under development, and they've actually went after a CRISI grant. So there's grant opportunities to help provide these facilities, but I imagine there'll be local matches. Typically, your federal grants come with matches, and we're going to have to find money to make it a priority and a reality.
So let's take the high end, because I asked this question of Brightline when just before I was elected, and I said, how much? And they said, 50 to 100 million. I said, okay, well, I'm sure everybody has experienced this lately where everything is costing a lot more when you're talking in terms of construction. So if it were 100 million, do you envision that some local government match of 50 million has to happen first?
It would depend on the grant, if that was what was being pursued. I really don't know, but I can tell you that this feasibility study is going to look at all the options we currently have and with the infrastructure bill, see what kind of grants are available, if there's other raise grants, if there's, I'm trying to think, if there's other, there might be a combination of grants. Of course, we would look to partnerships and Brightline itself and seeing what they can bring to the table. I don't think the city of Cocoa is going to single-handedly be able to accumulate the funds for this.
I don't think so either.
So this has to be, you know, community-wide, and how much, I don't know if you have more insight on what the grant
Commissioner,
requirements would be.
This governing board, was it last year or the year before? December of last year approved $17.5 million of the TPO's federal funds, as Laura mentioned, in those 2 years, to set aside for a potential design and/or construction of the station. Now, will we be ready in, 27 and 28? I don't know. And the money cannot just continue to roll. I mean, you either got to do something with it, or we're going to have to push it out and use some out-year money. So we do have, it's the TPO's federal funding. Typically, you can't necessarily match a federal grant with federal, but you can use non-grant money that is federal. So it can certainly be used for a potential grant opportunity, but if Aventura is the case study, there's a lot of local funding that went towards that, along with that Chrissy grant and along with Brightline. I mean, they were a funding partner too. So it should not all just be on us. I mean.
Yeah. Well, you have to also remember the intermodal funds that we're using to do this study came from the state.
Yes.
So that they have intermodal funds that we might be able to tap into also to help offset some of the funds.
Can be a funding partner as well. This is an intermodal station. This is taking traffic off of 95. This is.
I get that part, and I imagine that there may be some administration in the future that maybe really likes trains, right? And maybe those dollars are easier to get, but certainly, I think I'm hearing that Brevard and its municipalities are going to have to come up with a significant amount of money for this.
I think that's true, if we're going to be successful.
This
is all new.
And we're having a hard time with road capacity issues. So just wondering where the money will come from in the future. I appreciate it.
Mr. Forrester.
I can't help but feel when I'm listening to this that we're kind of, we're sending the train down the track.
Can you speak into your mic?
We're sending the train down the track before we built the track. We're talking about spending even money on the studies. And we've tried to, this group, Brightline, came and talked to us. We asked them point blank, do you have a plan to put a station in Cocoa? They got their map up there on the screen with no station in Cocoa. You ask them point blank, well, we don't know, maybe. We don't know, maybe doesn't seem like something that's going to motivate me to spend $2 million on a feasibility study, or whatever it cost. The other thing, $100 million for a station that is a lot of money. That is a boatload of money. There's a lot of different things we could do with $100 million that don't involve building a train station, a multimodal station. I'm skeptical, to be honest, if Brightline's even going to be around in 5 or 10 years. I don't know where they're going to make their money, but I could be wrong. So anyway, let's just say I'm very skeptical about the whole thing. I'll let it go at that.
Thank you, Mr. Forrester. Ms. Hanley.
Okay, like Mr. Donovan, we know that the airport just did an expansion, and we had that was $72 million. And it was we had to build the what do you call it? Jet bridges, and a lot of them had to be specialty built. And granted, we had some of the groundwork and everything else. I don't think we're going to have to build like the jetways to the station like this. Maybe I'm wrong, but $100 million, that's a lot of money. I think we all look at it, it's a lot of money, where I don't know if you have such a sophistication as the airport doing and they had to have, for international flights and different things like that we had to do that. That seems just way out of line. I'm an accountant. It just doesn't, the numbers don't add up to me. 50 million, maybe I can do with that one. Even that's high. But when you go into 100 million, that's just beyond my...
I think that's the point of the feasibility study, is basically a reality check. Yeah. Everybody's like, Brightline, please stop here. Please build us a station. Well, Brightline has its reasons why it didn't put one in the first place and needs to get up and running to make sure it is all going to work. And, what's it going to take from the locals? What compromises are we going to need to make? And is it something we really want? And hopefully this feasibility study can answer some of those questions and concerns and really get a better idea of what it's going to cost us and what opportunities there are to help get partnerships, private and public, that will work together.
And to that point, Laura, the Treasure Coast is also trying to move forward with their feasibility study, because they are, everyone's vying for a station, and we've been told that potentially, a station would happen probably in tandem with the Space Coast and the Treasure Coast. So they're going to be doing a feasibility study to determine whether a station would go in either Port St. Lucie or Stewart, I believe.
Yeah.
So they're not as far along as we are. Deputy Mayor, I will tell you that the feasibility study we're doing, we received a grant from DOT, so it did not cost the TPO any funding.
That's good.
For us to try and dig into this and figure out, and go to the public. There was a time back in 2016, not everyone really wanted Brightline to come through here, period. It was all aboard Florida back then. Now, wherever we go, the questions that I get are, why haven't you made them put in a station in Brevard? You can't make them put in a station. I get that all the time, that this should have been done. Why haven't you done this? As far as leaders here in Brevard, why have we not made them put in a station? So things have changed from when we first did that study that the port paid for, that station location study back in 2016. So we're trying to do our part and be proactive. And
I understand, and it's hard because I see the need to try to polish up your crystal ball and look down the road to see what your needs might be at some point. The other thing, though, is that I don't want us to get a bunch of money into this thing until we've got, and I understand we're still doing the feasibility study, and I appreciate that, but we need to get some kind of like a rough idea of what this facility is going to be.
Exactly.
Brightline is not going to put 20 stops between here and West Palm Beach. Otherwise, they don't have a high-speed train anymore.
That's right.
And I'm one of those that was skeptical in 2016 and still am about the whole Brightline thing. So I'm terribly afraid that we're going to end up with the reality that they're living with in South Florida, where they seem to use their trains to run over somebody about every month. They have a higher death rate per mile than any other railroad in the country, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm a little concerned.
Thank you, Mr. Forrester.
There's a lot of concerns, but I'm done.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Ms. Minus.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking, I think, to me, this is very interesting, and I agree with the feasibility study. Of course, anything that you do, anytime you do it, and especially now and in the future, it's going to cost millions. It's going to cost hundreds of millions of dollars and quite a bit. But anything that is worth anything, definitely you're going to pay for it. I think this is very good for Brevard County, and especially we just heard the airport director just gave us a great report of the state-of-the-art Melbourne Orlando Airport, and hopefully in the design that we would have stop-offs, drop-offs, or stops to the airport, to Cocoa, to Melbourne, say Melbourne, then Cocoa, and any other, say Port Canaveral. So this is long range, but I do believe that we need to move forward. I'm very optimistic about it, and I think it's very good for Brevard County. I'm not throwing money to the wind, but I think it is money worth very well spent, in my opinion.
Thank you, Ms. Minus. Any other comments? All right, thank you. I wanted to make the comment, too, that I'm very happy that we not only do we have Mr. Donovan here, but we have Terry here from the buses as well, because as you said, Laura, once we get the people here, we have to move them around. So I'm thinking the more we get them from Cocoa, from the rail station over to the airport, where they can go there and they can fly into or fly out of the airport, get on the rail, they can go south. They can go west if they dare, but they can go either way they want to. But I think we do need to have that station there, and we do need to be able to move people around. And I think we can certainly work together between the airport and having buses run commuters back and forth. So I don't know if we can get a regular bus route to do that, but I'm sure that there's a way to work that in there. So thank you very much, Laura, for your report. Sarah.
All right. Good afternoon. So for about 4 years now, we've had a governing board strategic plan in order to help move the policy of the organization and direct staff in various activities so that we are accomplishing the emphasis areas and focuses that you as a governing board hope to see us focusing on. So if you recall, last year we held a strategic plan workshop at the zoo. Thank you to all that attended. And we updated our strategic plan for the next 3 years. So I wanted to come back and provide an update now that it's been a year since we've enacted the new one, and let you know what we've accomplished over the last year and what to look for in the coming year. You do have a one-page report. It looks very similar to the one-pager strategic plan that's always in the back of your agenda package. So they kind of go hand in hand. All right, so starting off with leadership, which is to represent and promote the Space Coast TPO, and the performance measure is to implement the governing board strategic plan. Over the last year, we've adopted our annual legislative priorities, adopted our public participation plan, that is a 3-year plan, and 2 of our members attended the MPOAC Institute. And we also developed a grant identification tool that any of our municipal partners, as well as us, can use to look at the new federal grant programming and compare and contrast which grants might be good options for which projects. Some of the upcoming activities, we are going to continue to monitor grants and other funding sources. Obviously, we have a very lengthy list of project priorities, and as leaders in this organization, we need to make sure that we're moving those projects forward. Also, the annual legislative priorities. MPOAC Institute will be available to members again this year. At the last meeting, you all adopted a new officer policy, and we will be implementing that new officer policy. Next one is safety, which is implement a safe transportation system for all users. The performance measure is to prioritize a safe system approach pilot project on a high injury network corridor and evaluate and explore low-cost countermeasures. Shelby has been working to update the high injury network maps, so that has been completed. And now she has begun to work on updating our Vision Zero action plan. This is all for the purpose of pursuing safe streets for all funding. And that's going to be kind of what we're going to be seeing in this next year. She also held a Vision Zero workshop. I know some of you were able to attend, as well as numerous diverse outreach and safety events. So reaching different audiences, whether it's seniors, children, just general public, underserved communities. Some of the upcoming activities is the update to the Vision Zero action plan will be completed. And with that, we'll actually be able to take some of the corridors that are on the high injury network and begin pursuing that specific funding source, Safe Streets for All. We'll also continue to track current and potential safety projects. Next emphasis area is linking transportation and land use. This is to plan a network that provides transportation choices. So really everything that Laura just talked about, where we need to be thinking multimodal. The performance measure is to adopt plans, projects, programs that increase transportation choices. So ultimately that when you wake up in the morning, you have the ability to choose how you would like to travel in the county. So over the last year, we've approved the Intermodal Station Feasibility Study work order and received the FDOT grant to initiate that. We've initiated our 2050 long-range transportation plan, as well as also updating Space Coast Area Transit's transit development plan in conjunction with each other. We formed the Regional Intermodal Connections Committee, and then we finalized the Fisk-Roy-Wall intersection control evaluation. Some upcoming activities is the continued development of the 2050 Long-Range Transportation Plan and Transit Development Plan. As part of that, we are holding a State of Transportation Symposium on November 15th. And the next week or two, invites will go out. This is an opportunity for community leaders to share what are their priorities, vision, and even problems that they're experiencing with their transportation system. So we're currently finalizing speakers, already have a couple locked in. The Intermodal Station Feasibility Study, as well as also Debbie will be working on a Southern Brevard Trails Master Plan, which the scope will come to this governing board in October, and then a Mobility on Demand project with transit, which will come to this board in December. Next one is resiliency and sustainability. This is planned for a resilient and sustainable transportation system. Our performance measure was to adopt a transportation resiliency master plan. We accomplished this as of October 2022. It since then has been awarded the MPOAC Noteworthy Practice Award, as well as we also held a Ride the Wave to Resiliency Community Symposium in March. We are going to continue to work with FDOT and other partners to implement the Transportation Resiliency Master Plan, as well as to continue to outreach and share our resiliency efforts, activities, and however we can incorporate it. Finally, we have technology and data. This is to implement technology to enhance reliability of the transportation system. The performance measure is the launch of a data dashboard. What we have accomplished this past year is we've continued funding the transportation system management operational support for Brevard County Traffic Operations Center. We began scoping the data dashboard, and then in July, you actually approved that scope, and continued coordination and finalizing the design for the Transportation Management Center with Brevard County. The upcoming activities is we plan to launch the data dashboard early next year. We are updating our context classification and level of service, as well as also that continued coordination with Brevard County through the construction of the TMC. And with that, I can take any questions regarding the strategic plan.
Any questions for Ms. Crum? Questions for Ms. Sarah regarding her report? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you very, very much. All right. Next item, do we have any public comments? Or do we have any cards? No public comment? Any comments from the public? Any comments from any members? Anything for the good of the order? All right. Our next meeting will be right here on October 12th at 1:30. And do I have a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn. Mr. Willis, thank you very much. Second?
Second.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Allender. All those in favor, please get up and go home. Aye.